Why is it important for people to consider selling their cattle locally?
Well, the first thing is eventually them bigger guys are going to need these local sale barns. You know, they're eventually going to need them, and we see it, and it's okay. It's not a, you know, one thing I learned early on is that if I don't get your cattle, that don't mean I'm going to be mad at you, because I've experienced that. You know, a guy calls me and says, "Hey, I got some cattle I want to sell. Can you come get them?" Yes, blah blah blah. Come get them. I text him after the sale. Hey, how's your cattle do? Oh man, look great. The next week they leave. You know, there's some more that we cut off that weren't big enough, and that he didn't want to sell that day, and then they put them on a truck and send them to the regional barns. When that kind of stuff happens, it's not only, you know, about buy sell here, you know, buy here sell here. It's that, you know, there's stipulations with the state in this deal, like taxes. You know, it's a similar deal that, you know, we have to pay, and you give your money to these other places, and eventually when, you know, you got 50 calves and you take them to the big city, you know, to the big town, and you got a thin old cow, you take her to your local. I mean, you got it, the local sale barns, and this is not just for me. Like I said, I have friends, very good friends that are close to family, you know, in the sale barn industry that are my competitors. You know what I mean? We're not competitors. We talk. You know, they buy me cattle. They come here and buy cattle, or I try to go there if I can. You know, but on the weekends, as you know, I'm pretty well strapped with my kids. So and my family, we stay pretty busy. But it's a more of a thing of, you know, keep your money in state. But that's really not that is the main thing to me. But what people really don't understand, Mark, is that when you go to the big regional barns, and hey, it's nothing against them. Everybody's got to make a living. That's the kind of guy I am. Everybody's got to make a living. So, and if you're not making money, you're not going to be in business. And it falls down. It's like, you know, if I spend my money not with you, and everybody else goes to the big news broadcasters, you're not going to be in business very long. And when that happens, is guys like myself, we have no way to promote, and that's why it's such a big thing to me. But the main thing is that if you really, and a lot of people are biased, and they don't want to believe it, and it don't matter if you held them at gunpoint, you're not going to change their mind, and that's fine. But if you sit in here on a Tuesday, or you sit at another local barn, and there's 15 buyers here and there's 15 buyers at another local barn, I will guarantee you every single time that if there's a lot load, and what we say is a lot load, there's 45,000 plus pounds of cattle sold in one draft. That's a smooth load of cattle. That's a lot of beef, isn't it? Mm. So when you do that, you got all these guys that sit here on Tuesdays, and you got guys that sit other places. Every one of them guys has somebody that they can pick up the phone to and call to sell a load of cattle. A load of cattle is easier to sell than one cattle. It's just because it's a quantity deal, you know. That's what they're chasing, is the numbers, and they will bring. I'm telling you, they will bring as much local as they will anywhere in America. And that's a big thing to me, is that, you know, but you have to really see it for yourself to believe it. That there's friends of mine that are big operators, and they don't live here, so they don't get to sell here. But when I call them and say, hey, are you interested in these steers that weigh 895 pounds? And they're like, what are they going to cost? I say $335 to $345. And they're like, no, we can buy them over here 500 miles west, which cattle get higher out west. You know, that's just the natural it is. The freight is the main, you know, the reasoning of that. Freight's so high. And they said, we can buy them $20 a hundred cheaper over here. And I'm like, well, you're right. He's like, you sold them higher than a cat's back. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it. And he's like, what is because people out west that I get to deal with, it's more reality to them. They sell their cattle local or they put them in a feed yard. They're not going to put them on a truck and send them 500 miles. That ain't happening. There's so many local barns around that are big. You know, a local barn out there runs 1,500 to 4,000. So they can get a premium for them. And if you'll watch, what the producer has to realize is shrink. When you put a calf on a truck and you drive him 500 miles, he's going to shrink 2 to 6%. And when you're selling weight, as we touched earlier, you're selling cattle by the pound, that's a big factor. And not only is it a big factor of going 60 miles for freight than 300 or 400 or 560 miles. That's the deal is that you can't be have tunnel vision. You've got to really narrow it down and realize, like, if you put a pencil to it, that's what you're getting.
It may look like it costs more, but it'll save you in the long run.
It is. It is. I mean, you got a big old freight bill, saying here to, Western Oklahoma, $1,800. Well, you bust that up into, you divide that over into your cattle. Well, and then when they get done putting the commission on them, and the freight and the insurance and the feed, that these other local barns, they can minimize that cost. There's ways that they can minimize it, and they can bring them in 2 days before here or a day before here and get fed out back, and they can lay around and fill up and not have to be in a whole new world, because Arkansas and Oklahoma is a different world. Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Kansas, it's a different animal. So that's why when you buy cattle, it's, as far as talking about them cuts, we were talking about in class and areas that you have to know what you're doing is that, cattle to go west and north, they got to have some hair. They can't be a Louisiana type calf. They got to have some hair to be able to take the cold. And that plays in a big factor. And it's just there's a whole lot of scenarios that local barns can do for you if you just give them a shot.